up in a small town where nothing much ever happened, so it didn't take long for people to make up stories just to pass the time. One of those stories was about the Holloway place, an old, rotting farmhouse on the edge of town that had supposedly been abandoned since the 80s. Some people said a man died in there. Others said he killed someone. Either way, no one lived there anymore, and everyone agreed it was haunted. Of course, we didn't really believe that. It was the summer after graduation, and a few of us decided to check it out, just for fun. There were 4 of us: me, Mason, Leah, and Tyson. Mason had been talking about going for weeks, swearing he could get us inside. Said he found a busted window around back where we could climb in without being seen from the road. I was hesitant, but honestly, I didn't want to be the one person who backed out. Plus, I figured we'd be in and out in 15 minutes tops. We showed up just before sunset. The place looked even worse in person. Weather-worn siding, half the shingles missing, and all the windows boarded up, except for one in the back. Mason was right about that. We had to crawl through a hole where the frame had completely rotted out. Inside, it smelled like mildew and animal droppings. The air was thick and stale, and our flashlights barely cut through the dust. The walls were peeling, furniture was overturned, and cobwebs clung to every doorway. It looked exactly how you'd expect a haunted house to look. "Okay, this is actually kind of creepy," Leah whispered as we stepped into the front hallway. "Yeah, well, don't pee yourself yet," Mason joked. "Let's check upstairs." We moved slowly, our footsteps creaking on the warped wooden floor. The staircase groaned with every step, and once we got to the second floor, I could already feel the change in temperature. It was noticeably colder. There were 3 bedrooms. We split up. Leah and Tyson went left. Mason and I took the one on the right. Ours looked like it might have been a kid's room at one point. There were faded stickers on the closet door and an old twin mattress pushed up against the wall. It was completely quiet except for the occasional sound of Leah's laugh drifting down the hallway. Then, slam. A door slammed shut somewhere behind us, loud and sharp. We all jumped and came rushing into the hallway at once. Leah was wide-eyed. That wasn't us. "Could have been the wind," Tyson offered, but we all knew it hadn't been windy. We regrouped and went to investigate the source of the noise. The middle bedroom door, which had been half open when we arrived, was now shut tight. Mason turned the knob and pushed it open slowly. The room was empty. Just a dusty old dresser and broken window blinds swaying slightly, like something had disturbed them. "This place is so weird," Leah said, hugging herself. We moved back toward the staircase, debating whether we should head out. That's when the overhead hallway light flickered, just once, then again. Then it went out completely. Tyson looked up, confused. "There's no power in here, right?" Mason shook his head. "Not for decades." We all stood there frozen. Then, thump. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the attic above us. We bolted down the stairs, like our lives depended on it. Back in the living room, we stopped to catch our breath. No one was speaking. It was like we were waiting to see if something else would happen. Then Mason realized Tyson was missing. "Ty, you with us?" Nothing. "Tyson." No answer. "Maybe he ran out the back," I suggested. "Let's just go." But Mason wasn't buying it. "We're not leaving him." We split up to search the first floor. Leah took the kitchen. I took the hallway. Mason went to the back door. That's when I noticed the mirror hanging above the dusty old fireplace. It was cracked, but still intact enough to reflect part of the room. And in that mirror, I saw someone standing at the top of the staircase. My stomach dropped. I whipped around. Nothing. The staircase was empty, but when I looked back at the mirror, they were still there. A tall, pale figure standing just at the edge of the top step, wearing what looked like an old military jacket. I didn't blink. I didn't move. But when I called out, "Tyson?" the figure vanished. From the mirror, from the stairs, from everything. "I found him," Mason shouted from the back. Tyson was outside, leaning against the shed, breathing hard. He said he'd seen something move in the upstairs hallway and bolted. Claimed he tried to call for us, but we didn't hear him. We didn't argue. We just got out of there. As we climbed back through the window and out into the night air, I glanced back one last time, and I swear I saw movement in the upstairs window, just for a second. A flicker of light. We never went back to the Holloway place. A few months later, the county finally condemned it and tore it down. But I'll never forget the feeling I had standing in that hallway, like someone was still there, watching. Not angry, not evil, just present, waiting. I used to think the night janitor at our school was completely out of his mind. His name was Joe, probably in his late 60s, and he'd worked there longer than most of the staff had been alive. He was quiet, polite, but always a little off. You'd pass him in the hallway, and he'd say something like, "Careful around room 112 after dark. That's where she lingers." Or, "Don't whistle past the gym at night. They don't like that." When I first became principal, I tried to be kind about it. Figured it was his way of making the night shift a little more interesting. But as time went on, the comments got weirder, more specific. "Don't play music too loud after 9, he said once, pushing a mop past my office. "It stirs them up." I just smiled and nodded, but inside, I was rolling my eyes. That is, until one Thursday night, about 6 months ago. I had stayed late to catch up on grant paperwork. My office is in the old wing, built back in the 30s. The walls are thick, the windows drafty, and the whole section of the school creaks like it's got arthritis. Joe was making his rounds like always, quietly vacuuming the hallway outside. To keep myself awake, I threw on a playlist. Nothing crazy, just some upbeat music to keep my energy up. After a while, I got lost in my work. That's when Joe knocked softly on the door. I opened it, and he looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I don't mean to intrude, but I'd keep it down. The music, it carries through the vents." I forced a polite smile. "Sorry, Joe. I'll turn it down a bit." He gave a slow nod. "Appreciate it. They get touchy about noise after dark." I didn't respond. Just shut the door and turned the volume down slightly, barely enough to notice. Then I went back to work. That's when the lights flickered. Just once, and only for a second. I assumed it was the old wiring, like always. But then my office door creaked slightly. Not a knock, not pressure, just the hinges flexing like someone was standing on the other side. I got up and opened it. No one was there. The hallway was dim, the fluorescent bulbs humming. I didn't see Joe, but his cleaning cart was still parked near the trophy case. I closed the door again. This time I locked it. I told myself I was being ridiculous. That's what happens when you stay in an old school building too long at night. 10 minutes passed. Then I heard it. The distinct sound of chairs screeching across tile. I froze. It was coming from the classroom directly across from me. I stood there, barely breathing, listening. One chair, then another. Then, something slammed against the wall, a sharp, loud bang that made me jump in my seat. I grabbed my keys and slowly crept into the hallway. I crossed to the door of room 103 and looked inside. The lights were off, but I could see the faint outlines of desks and chairs. One of the chairs was overturned, spinning slowly in place, like it had just been moved. No breeze, no windows open. Then I noticed something else. The air felt wrong, heavier, like I had walked into a room filled with static. My ears were ringing slightly, and every hair on my body stood on end. I backed out and closed the door. Just as I turned to walk away, the PA system crackled on. Not the intercom, the PA. And from every speaker in the hallway, I heard a voice. A woman's voice, whispering. It wasn't saying anything I could make out, just this low, garbled hum, almost like someone humming a tune off-key, buried in layers of static. Then the hallway lights cut out, all at once. I bolted back to my office, heart pounding, slamming the door shut behind me. That's when I saw him, Joe, standing just outside the glass window in my office door, backlit by emergency lighting, completely still. I opened the door a crack. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Joe stepped inside and set down his keys. "I warned you," he said. "You woke her up." I looked at him, trying to find some rational explanation, but I had nothing. My brain was scrambling to make sense of it. Joe sat down in the guest chair and folded his hands. "She died here," he said calmly. "Teacher back in the 50s, car accident. They say she never really left. She likes music but not too loud. Reminds her she's not alive anymore. Makes her angry." I wanted to laugh, to tell him he was crazy, but I couldn't unhear the whispering. I couldn't unsee the chair spinning by itself. We sat there in silence for what felt like hours, until the lights finally flickered back on. Joe stood up and said, "You're safe now. She's gone. But next time, just listen." I packed up and left immediately. I didn't even turn the music off. I just shut the laptop and walked out the front doors without looking back. I never told anyone what happened that night, not even the superintendent. I don't know if they'd believe me anyway. But ever since then, when I stay late, I keep the music off. And every time I pass Joe in the hallway, I make sure to smile and say, "You were right." I work as an usher at a small-town theater that's been around for decades. The kind of place with red velvet seats, creaky wooden floors, and the same soda machines they've had since the 80s. Everyone in town knows about it. What fewer people know is that the original building burned down in the 1950s, killing 20 people during a Saturday matinee. The newspapers said it was a faulty wire behind the stage lights. Everyone else said it was cursed. The new building was put up less than a year later, right on top of the ashes. They even reused parts of the old foundation. You can still see scorched brickwork if you look in the right places, especially behind the big screen in Theater 1. Most people don't talk about the fire anymore. But if you work there long enough, you hear stories. Lights flickering, cold spots, doors opening on their own. One guy said he heard someone clapping in an empty theater during a matinee last year. Another girl quit on the spot after she swore she saw someone sitting in the back row after everyone had already cleared out. I never believed it until the midnight premiere of Night Trawler 3. It was a packed house. People dressed up, laughing, taking pictures in front of the posters. I was on usher duty, which meant cleaning up the theater after the show. My co-workers, Jesse and Marco, were assigned to concessions. and they were busy closing up the registers and counting inventory. The movie ended just before 2 a.m., and the crowd filtered out pretty quickly. By 2:30, the building was basically empty. I gave Jesse a thumbs up as I headed into Theater 1 with my trash bag and flashlight. The room was dark except for the dim aisle lights and the faint blue glow from the exit signs. I started my usual sweep, picking up popcorn bags, soda cups, whatever people left behind. It was quiet, peaceful even, until I heard someone whisper. At first, I thought it was my radio, but I hadn't turned it on. Then I thought maybe Marco or Jesse were playing a prank. I clicked my flashlight off and waited. Nothing. I walked up the aisles slowly, checking each row. About halfway up the left side, I heard it again. This time, it was clearer. "Help!" It was so faint I thought I imagined it. I swung my flashlight toward the sound. The seats were empty, but then I noticed something. One of the armrests was down. Every other seat was upright, except that one. I walked toward it slowly, heart pounding. As I reached the row, I felt a wave of cold air, unnatural cold, like opening a freezer. I reached out and pushed the seat back up. It slammed itself back down. I jumped back and nearly tripped over the row behind me. My flashlight flickered. That's when the whisper came again. Closer, this time. "Help me." I turned and bolted down the aisle, practically throwing myself into the hallway. "Marco?" I yelled. No answer. I ran toward concessions, heart pounding. Jesse was behind the counter, wiping things down. "Did you guys come into Theater 1 just now?" I asked, out of breath. She looked up, confused. "Number, we've been back here." I told her what I heard, what I saw, and she just stared at me for a second. Then she said, "You know, Theater 1's where the fire started." I nodded. "I know." Jesse hesitated, then said, "You're not the first person to say something like that." Marco came out from the back a minute later, and I didn't even bother trying to explain it again. I just asked if one of them could help me finish the cleanup. Jessie offered to come with me. She brought her phone and turned on the flashlight. We walked back into Theater 1 together, and the air felt normal again. The seat was upright. The chill was gone. No voices. But as we turned to leave, Jessie froze. "What?" I whispered. She slowly pointed toward the emergency exit in the back corner. The door was open, just a crack. We hadn't opened it, and no one else had come in or out of that theater. We didn't even bother checking. We left the trash behind and walked out together without saying a word. The next morning, the manager asked why the cleanup wasn't finished. I just told him we had an issue with the lights. I've worked dozens of shifts since then. I still go into Theater 1, still clean up popcorn and soda cups and gum wrappers. But I don't stay there alone, and I never sit in the back row. Thanks for stopping by the channel. We hope you enjoyed these 3 truly terrifying stories. If you want to hear more just like this one, subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you can be reminded when we post a new long-form video every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you have a story you'd like to hear read on the channel, email it to us at officialnightmarenarratives@gmail.com, and you might just hear your story read in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and stay spooky, friends. We'll catch you in the next one.